We are continuing our coverage of Joe Biden's historic pick to be his running mate, Senator Kamala Harris. She is the first Black woman and first Indian woman to run on a ticket as vice president. So we want to bring in South Carolina Congressman and House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn to talk a little bit more about what this campaign means moving forward. Everyone's gearing up for this election. This announcement yesterday, people were, she was sort of the one that was at that, probably leading the pack, but still, it was still a stunning historic announcement. So before we get into her specifically, Congressman, I want to ask you, what does having Kamala Harris on the ticket as a possible vice president mean for the Democratic Party and also mean for the country? What does it say about where we've come?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I believe that this country is at an inflection point. It's a word that I've heard her use often. The fact of the matter is, we are at a position in this country that a lot of us thought we would never see. Black Lives Matter, that whole movement has taken hold in the country, and people are rallying to their call. And so I believe that this campaign is doing the same thing. When Biden selected her, I think that he was saying to African Americans, to people of color, Asian Americans, saying to women, saying to historical Black colleges and universities, that you are a mainstream, the mainstream of this country. We are doing what is necessary for us to get beyond this whole notion that the Democratic Party takes blacks for granted. The old notion that Black women are not appreciated, that immigrants ought to stay outside of the mainstream. She is the daughter of immigrants. And we know what kind of rumors that float around about the historical Black colleges and universities. I'm a graduate of one. The chairman of the board of Microsoft is a graduate of a HBCU. We've had astronauts after astronauts from HBCUs. And so this puts it into the political arena. It's always been with the scientists. South Carolina State that I graduated from, they have produced 23 line officers in the United States military. That's a record, unheard of. That little Black college down there in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And you go up and you look at the general's rank. It can be the Army, Air Force. It can be the Marine Corps. The commanding officer at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, right now, the largest training center in the country, a graduate of South Carolina State University. So her being from Howard University, though they are bisons, I'm a bulldog, I'm going to be a bison through November 3rd.
Well, I would like to also point out that one of the most important HBCU graduates to me, my husband, went to Hampton. He's a pirate, but I think he feels that same sort of sense of pride that you are feeling as well.
Absolutely.
Congressman, I know that you were advising Joe Biden. I'm curious as to sort of how much input you had. I know that you were a supporter of Representative Karen Bass. What did you say to Joe Biden?
Well, I was supporting all of them. There were 12 people in the race. 4 African Americans, women, were seriously considered. And I went through with Joe Biden what I thought the pluses and minuses were of all 4 of them. I love Val Demings, and I have a great deal of respect for Karen Bass. Susan Rice, a great friend of mine. In fact, her father, a native of Florence, South Carolina. So I gave him what I thought were the strengths of each one of them. And so I told him that I would not pick one over the other, and that he had to do. I was a part of the vetting. Then they were doing the polling. And then I said to him, when all of that's over, you let your head and your heart take a look, and you go with that. Now, I spoke to him the day before he reached his conclusion. He said to me at the time, he said, I'm having a little war between my head and my heart. I said, when that's reconciled, I'll give you a call and let you know what my decision is. And he called me on yesterday morning to tell me what his decision was.
Let me ask you a question. Kamala Harris dropped out of the primary race because she essentially ran out of money and didn't have the support. There have been some critics, particularly even critics within the African American community, that have taken issue with her history as a prosecutor. In fact, during the primaries, it was Joe Biden who really enjoyed the lion's share of African American voter support versus Kamala Harris. How do you address those concerns?
Well, it's very simple. Joe Biden comes from Delaware, the 8th blackest state in the Union. A lot of people don't realize that. Percentage-wise, Delaware is number 8. He grew up in Delaware among African-American voters. He would never have gotten to the Senate, the United States Senate at the age of 29, but for African-American voters. So Joe Biden had that kind of relationship. He considers South Carolina his second home. And everywhere I went during the primary here in South Carolina, people were saying to me, we need Biden and Harris. Biden should be our nominee, and Harris, he should pick Harris for VP. That was pretty widespread throughout South Carolina. I'm talking about early on in the process before she dropped out. And I think that's why she didn't click for number 1, because people always saw her as number 2, because the vast majority of African Americans in this country wanted to see Joe Biden as a nominee. And so when people were telling me what happened in South Carolina, all what happened was that the people of South Carolina got who they wanted. They went and voted for who they wanted. Now, a lot of people gave me credit, and I took it. But I can tell you, the sentiments were there among African Americans throughout South Carolina for Joe Biden.
Really quickly, I've seen a lot of celebrating about the announcement of Kamala Harris. And, for just politics aside, black women saying that they really feel like the Democratic Party is seeing them for the first time in a long time. That being said, I did an interview with a reporter who had been doing a lot of coverage about African American women getting involved in politics. And one of the things that she said she heard over and over again when Joe Biden was picking a running mate is they did not want him just to pick a black woman because the pressure was on. They want someone who supports their issues. How do you respond to people who say, oh, well, he was pressured to pick a black woman as a running mate?
Well, that's one of the reasons I kept my public persona as I did. I've just had my 80th birthday, so I've been around this business for a long time. I was elected president of my youth council of the NAACP when I was 12 years old. I was marching with John Lewis at the age of 20. So I know this business quite a bit. And that's why you never heard me say that it was a must that it be an African-American woman. I always said that it would be a plus. And because I did not want to put our nominee, at that time prospective nominee, in the position of people saying he was pressured to do it. We should not pressure anybody. And I say to people all the time, I don't want anybody telling me what I must do. And I will never tell anybody else what they must do. I will suggest as what might be a plus, but I would never tell anybody that it's a must. And I think it's a mistake for people to do that because all you do is lower the prestige, the posture of the candidate when you have that kind of public pressure. I will never apply it to anybody.
All right, Congressman Clyburn, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.